Hey gang, once again we are doing a review based on the results of our September Patreon poll. All summer long I decided to do another one because I clearly like the outcome of August, to see what my members would be intrigued in hearing me talk about. And considering I haven't hit my yearly Muppet quota, I decided to let them have the option between 3 Muppet-based shows and 1 Dana Carvey show. And I think we know exactly who's going to be the winner of this one, right? Right? Huh. Appears I've once again underestimated the hungry tastes of my Patreon members. Very well. But to give you an idea what you're missing out on, here's a little taste of what could have been.
I'm the caring, nurturing president, and without Hillary, I can be both father and mother to our nation. And this isn't just talk, I've taken this a step further. With the employment of estrogen hormonal therapy, I have developed the ability to breastfeed. That's right, I will feed the world. That's right, come on in here. I can feed babies as well as puppies and kitties. That's right, just suckle in there. Strap on, Tricia. Eat to your heart's content.
That's right. Instead of a 1990s TGIF show that flopped, I could have been talking about the most amazing televised disaster of 1996! And how much I love its insanity. Oh, you think about that poor choice the next time you go to bed tonight.
Standing in the middle of nowhere, wondering how to begin. Lost between tomorrow and yesterday, between now and then. Back where you started, here we go round again. Back where you started, come on, do it again, do it again, do it again. Back where we started, here we go round again. Day after day I get up and I say, do it again, do it again, do it again. Day after day I get up and I say, come on, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Let the whole world fuss. Mom and Dad will help us adjust. It's just aliens in the family.
Sitcom television, while generally formulaic, can lead to some amazing things. While not every show can be the next Bewitched or Normally or Classic, what makes them intriguing is how they reflect the time and the generation they came out in. For every Addams Family, there is a Munster. For every My Favorite Martian, there is an Alf. And for every Brady Bunch, well, you get the idea. It's one thing to tap into another subgenre, but it's more interesting when you have a good idea and see where you can branch off from that. Take, for example, Dinosaurs. On the surface, it's an innovative Jim Henson puppet show that is a prehistoric family leading a sitcom-style life. Gimmicky as it is, I still feel that show holds up for its deeper environmental themes and fun characters.
I sold the Graptolites to Mr. Richfield for $73.
You sold Mom's anniversary gift?
He was gonna bite off my head.
Dad, where's your self-respect?
I had to throw that in to close the deal.
To top whatever level of creativity they had here would be pure madness. But oh, they tried. Man, did they try. Aliens in the Family was a very short-lived TGIF sitcom that was very much what happened if you replaced a portion of the Brady Bunch with aliens. Behind-the-scenes information on this sitcom is very scarce, and as of this video, there's no official DVD release. So I tried to dig up as much backstory and accurate information as I could for the view of your interest. So I highly advise you, take what I tell you as a basic grain of salt. In the mid-1990s, Disney acquired the ABC network, which was about as big of a deal as when they nabbed Marvel Comics and 20th Century Fox Studios. Around that time, some of the programming started to be aimed more towards a family-friendly audience, while others tried to know their limits.
Annie Opus, remember on national network television? Owned by Disney. Can't do anything too bad. Okay. That 2 fingers is good.
One of the more noteworthy changes was the TGIF lineup. Interestingly, Aliens in the Family was created by Andy and Susan Borowitz, better known for creating The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I've tried to search high and low to understand how they came up with the idea for this series, but came up empty-handed. In my travels, however, I did hear about this. Supposedly, there's a story going around saying that Third Rock from the Sun was originally pitched to the ABC network, but the new network executives felt it was too bawdy. That show involves a bunch of aliens who disguise themselves as humans to observe how Earth works. It ran for 6 seasons on NBC and has been noted a masterpiece among other sitcoms. I was skeptical about this fact at first, until I read up on an article that was written around the same time of Alien the Family's debut. This quote from Andy Borowitz somewhat hints to me that there might have been some network interference, but then again I could be overanalyzing here. What's interesting is how when this show is brought up in conversations with die-hard Muppet enthusiasts, they often easily make the comparison that this was some sort of way to cash in on the success of Dinosaurs that was once lived. Even more ironic enough, despite the premise involving some creatures done by the Jim Henson Creature Shop, a good majority of the episodes are directed by Tom Dobrovich, who also helmed a bunch of episodes of Dinosaurs. The premise involves a single father named Doug Brody with 2 children who gets abducted by an alien. The alien falls in love with him, and the 2 marry. The world's reaction, you ask?
Well, let me put it this way. No matter how big a splash you make in this world, whether you're Corey Feldman, Frankie Muniz, Justin Bieber, or a talking teddy bear, eventually nobody gives a shit.
And by pure coincidence, the alien named Cookie just so happens to have children of her own, too. That's the way they became the Brady Bunch. The series relied itself on both family members trying to get along, or one of them trying to help out each other. The aliens on the show were either depicted as some neat-looking animatronics by the Jim Henson Creature Shop, or human-looking with expansive forehead makeup.
Do you notice the peculiar indentations in both their foreheads?
No!
Coincidental, no doubt.
Okay, I have to gush a little here. Being a Jim Henson Company production, the technical work they do here on the animatronics is always easily impressive to me. The creature designs are made by Kirk R. Thatcher, who ironically worked prior on Dinosaurs. While I'm not too big on the alien look, it still feels very Henson-esque, and it fits Thatcher's charming cartoon style. No matter how many times I observe how these puppets and suits are performed, it feels like I'm watching a living, breathing creature. No matter how many times I look for the strings or try to find where the head is, I'm still impressed by the quality of the performer. This is a perfect testament to Jim's will of what the viewer sees in the camera they're going to focus on and believe in. Which is a shame because it underestimates the quality of the writing on how these characters and stories are written. We have Doug Brody, played by John Bedford Lloyd, who you might remember as Jammer from The Abyss. He follows the trope of the average father trying to keep the family under control. What maintains us from feeling one note is John's performance. At times you do feel like he is well adjusted to some of the strange quirks the aliens create, and even he can be heartfelt. And when it comes to learning another alien's culture, he tries at best to adapt to it. Doug's children, on the other hand, are not as well fleshed out. There's teenager Heather and younger brother Adam. I feel like their reason for existing is to be the straight character of the alien step-siblings' hijinks. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. They feel more like comedic foils, considering they are used more as centers for B-plot material. Huh? What? What is it? Oh! You don't know what a B-plot is, do you? Oh, that's very easy. You see, in normal sitcom writing, there's 2 kinds of plots. The A-plot and the B-plot. The A plot is usually the main storyline that's wrapped around the entire episode, and the B plot is just there to either fill up time or somehow interconnect with the main A plot. Now, it's very easy to get these two mixed up because, well, it depends on which one has more focus.
Judy knows.
Since when did we have that much in the budget to do that?
Speaking of which, let's talk about the alien side of the Brodies. There's Cookie, played by the late Margaret Trigg, who I actually feel is one of my favorite characters on the show. Much like with Doug, Cookie is trying to get accustomed to living on Earth while still obviously attached to her alien customs. Interactions with John actually make me feel they have some good chemistry. There are times where I felt like they act like a legit couple.
Hi, honey. These are for you.
Doug, you shouldn't have. Oh, my favorite.
Well, I felt bad about not being here tonight for dinner. It has been a doozy of a week.
The alien children, on the other hand, yeah, I feel they were constructed as the big gimmick of the show. Human characters acting with puppet aliens. And honestly, I'm all for it. Granted, if the characters are as developed as the humans. There's Snizzy, voiced by Alice Deneen, the sister who likes science stuff and tries to help out Adam with his problems. Spit, voiced by Muppet veteran Joey Mazzarino, who is the brother that likes to annoy Heather with his weird and gross traits like show off his brain or eating the toaster.
Why'd you do that?
There were crumbs in it.
Maybe I wanted that toaster?
Eat your own toaster.
And lastly, there is the baby Bobot. Undeniably, he is very much the only thing I'm certain folks will remember the most from this series. Because, as much as I don't want to admit it, Bobot has the most personality out of the bunch.
I have been awakened in an untimely fashion. Now I must make random demands. Bottle, lullaby, new blanket, bottle, lullaby, cozy onesie.
Yeah, many tend to compare him to baby Ugg Undying Sinclair for obvious reasons. Not the mama, not the mama! But for those who have properly seen the show, tend to compare Bobot to Stewie from Family Guy.
Both hold ambitions to take over the world, but get distracted by their child mentality. Almost every episode he is in tends to take over a good majority of the running time, even when it's an episode where he's not meant to be the focus. That's not to say everyone else is doing a bad job, I just feel Bobot has a bit too much overexposure. But I can't deny how funny his moments are. Especially when he's paired with the nanny Sally, played by Julie Dretzen.
I'm afraid this week you're going on a little diet from pudding. You're not going to win this one.
And yes, Muppet heads, I'm aware he's being performed by Sesame Street and Muppet performer David Rudman. Honestly, when you play his performance as Bobot and Baby Bear from Sesame Street back to back, you can't get the similarities out of your head.
The one thing I never quite understood about Bobot was how he had this never-ending obsession for chocolate pudding. I always felt it was somewhat forced to me, like as if they're trying to make it the next "not the mama" catchphrase.
I require pudding.
Pudding? In the morning? Well, Sally doesn't think that's a very good idea.
What is the deal? What does a baby want with pudding? I mean, granted the show hints that Bobot is 2 years old, but can you really give pudding to a baby that age? Were the networks trying to make him the next big spokesperson for Jell-O? When you think about it too deeply, it's about as puzzling as...
What does God need with a starship?
Yeah, that.
So in order to understand how I feel about this show, I would have to go through every single episode. Thankfully, there was only 8 of them. A short season, but easy for me to analyze at best. The first episode, Meet the Brodies, appeared on March 15th, 1996, and right after the Gareth Brooks episode of Muppets Tonight. It's very much a pilot episode that tries to establish everyone and who they are. It's rough on the edges, and probably not the best way to get introduced to the show. The main plot involves Bobot hypnotizing his father's boss so he can get a promotion. However, every time Doug messes up, he gets immediately promoted, causing less time with the family. I can see this working if it wasn't for one thing. We never get a motivation for Bobot controlling the boss's mind. He literally crawls up to him and hypnotizes him. It just comes out of nowhere. In the B plot, Adam is taking care of the school's frog, but it tragically dies while jumping into a vat of pudding.
Monster Frog.
My pudding.
Snizzy tries to revive the frog to much success, but ends up growing the frog to an oversized Godzilla monster that starts eating people. But enough of that, because we also have to deal with Heather getting annoyed with Spit's gross-out habits. And even that weirdly pays off when it's revealed one of her friends named Tiffany shows affection for her alien step-sibling.
That would be oddly altruistic of me.
All right, what do you want?
Well, you know that car Dad's gonna get you when you turn 16?
Yeah?
I'd like to eat it.
This is not a terrible pilot, as there are some funny jokes sprinkled in here and there that keep it somewhat amusing, and it's mostly due to the timing and pace of its execution.
Daddy will read you later, honey. Bye-bye.
Unacceptable. In protest, I must throw my breakfast against the wall.
And even the heartfelt stuff weirdly works to its advantage. I feel the biggest disadvantage is that we don't have a story that keeps the Brodies together. I would have liked a first episode that gave them all something to do in order to play off each other, as opposed to each one given separate storylines as it caused us to focus on too much. Also, two quick things. This is the only time you will ever see or hear a mention of Cookie's ex-husband.
Why would I let a gorgeous guy like that go? I've got to tell you, he was never there for the kids. Oh well, at least they got his looks.
And while the show does pay homage to famous science fiction properties like Star Trek, there are some times where I do wonder if they're stealing from others for the sake of a joke.
I don't mean to be critical of your parenting, but, Bobot seems a little out of control.
I'm sorry, Sally, I didn't hear that.
I question the similarity coincidence greatly.
I'm not saying that they stole the idea, really. It was probably a homage, right? It was a homage to Larry. You know how they say that, homage? It means, I am honoring you, Mr. Spielberg, by stealing you blind. It's an homage. I'm going to France with your money, sir, as an homage.
Next episode is Bobot Conquers All, where Bobot realizes he's overworking his nanny too much to the point she is stressed. So he tries to set her up with other guys with not much success until he finally gets someone named Chris at the mall.
I have done the impossible. Now I must bring love to all.
Fun fact, Christopher is played by Jace Bartok. You might know better as this guy from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Dresses like a spider and he looks like a bug. But we should all just give him one big hug.
Anyway, the relationship doesn't last as Christopher is cheating on Sally, which leads Bobot to retaliate in sitcom fashion. Outside of a couple of funny jokes, like when Bobot gets a priest to read lines from a romantic novel,
I've roped a lot of wild horses in my day, but now I'm fixin' to tame your wild heart.
the A-plot of this episode is subpar. The moral, I guess, is to not pry into one's personal life and control it, but at least respect them. I just feel the B-plot was more interesting to me. Adam is trying to get sick from his dad so he can avoid gym class. However, the flu spreads to Spit instead, garnering some interesting results.
Uh-oh. I feel a glutton snore coming on. False alarm.
Apparently, if he makes a big sneeze, it will blow away everyone in the Kingdom Come. Why wasn't this the main plot? It's funny, relatable, and expands more into the alien culture. That's not to say Bobot's storyline is uninteresting, I just feel there's a big missed opportunity here.
And compared to the other episodes that would come after this one, it's kind of a shame that Aliens in the Family was pulled from primetime.
After 2 weeks, ABC pulled the show from the TGIF lineup. From what I could research, the show wasn't a ratings disaster, but it wasn't a favorite with the critics either. Many of the reviews seem to point out how the show seemed geared more towards kids rather than the whole family.
And I do agree, to an extent. There were times where the show played itself way too safe, and the only raunchy moments were developed in small, tiny eye-drop doses.
Even Steve Urkel himself, Jaleel White, was very vocal of the show's addition to the TGIF lineup, claiming it was one of the many reasons the ABC Friday night block lost a lot of credibility. On a side note, this comment was said around the time Family Matters was picked up by CBS, so they could compete with the Friday night ratings.
Joke's on you, CBS, because at that point, Family Matters had already jumped the shark! Seriously, the series finale was set in space. As for Aliens in the Family, the remaining 6 episodes were burned out over the summer Saturday mornings. Because clearly this fit in well with Bump in the Night and Reboot. And again, there was also The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, that animated Free Willy series, and Fudge. And then again, we still had the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show. Point is, you have a TV series meant for primetime audiences that got dropped into a time slot meant for other programs. There were certain jokes and concepts meant for an older audience that would clearly go over a child's head.
Did I do something wrong?
I think you're discovering a little something we call the male ego.
This is so bizarre. On my planet, women are better than men, and men don't have a problem with it.
Oh, gee, Bobby, can you tell me and Gobo what gender role politics are?
With that massive bit of context out of the way, we get our next episode, Cookie Makes Some Dough. Cookie decides to get a job at her husband's office, and her small acts as a receptionist cause the boss to promote her as vice president. Meanwhile, Doug sees the success of his wife and starts to get jealous. And here's where the episode gets a little uncomfortable for my taste. Doug starts to get bitter about how much of an overnight success Cookie has become, leading himself to feel he is inferior. Something about this feels out of character for him, even considering how much time we spent getting to know his personality in the previous 2 episodes. And even in the later episodes, he doesn't get this annoyed about his wife.
And to add more salt to the wound...
Well, it's different on Earth. Here, women are better than men, but men do have a problem with it.
So what do?
You've got to let them think that they're better. Let them win every now and then.
Why do women on Earth put up with this?
We need someone to open jars.
Oh, today's culture would definitely have a field day if they saw stuff like that.
I am no marriage expert, but I always believe there should be at least an equal amount of gratitude, no matter who is better than the other. This whole let the Wookiee win motif would never be accepted today. Why couldn't they just talk about their problems or come to an understanding? At least on The Simpsons, Homer and Marge try to discuss their differences and come to some agreement at best. Here, this is the 3rd episode of your sitcom, and if one skipped the other 2, they would feel Doug was a jerk to his wife. The B-plot is not very unique. Snizzy tries to remove a zit on Heather's face, but ends up doing all sorts of hijinks, eventually leading her to be shrunken down to the size of a doll.
My life is over. I'm 10 inches tall. I'll never have a boyfriend.
We can always fix you up with Mr. Conductor from Shining Time Station.
Ha. Standard sitcom stuff. Nothing special.
The only big highlight of this episode is the ending where Cookie makes a robot for the boss and he's convinced he can replace everyone in the business. The robot goes haywire for reasons I won't spoil and goes after the boss. I don't know why, but it almost looks like one of the Cybermen from Doctor Who if he was crossed with Bert from Sesame Street.
Robot?
Resistance is futile.
Other than that, this is the weakest episode of the batch for me. If it wasn't for the questionable feministic quality in the writing...
I know feminists would hate me for saying this, but I gotta admit, I really miss doing all this mom stuff.
This would have been an average episode at best. The next episode, You Don't Have to Be a Pet to Be Popular, introduces us to a new character, Varch, who is Spit's pet. He is a dog-like creature who has a ravenous appetite for empty cans, shoes, and future cast members of Dawson's Creek.
Stay, Varch, stay. Well, young man, looks like you've got a story to tell the grandkids.
Wrong set.
And yes, that was James Van Der Beek making a cameo 2 years before his appearance on Dawson's Creek. Honestly, this is the high point of the episode for me.
Aside from that, there's not much to Varch's character. He is just the quirky alien pet that looks like Cousin It if he was mutated with a Tribble and Farfel. His stature as a recurring character is not much, given how he only gets small appearances throughout the rest of the show. Anyway, Varch eventually grows to like Heather, who responds in the most predictable of ways.
Heather, he's our pet now. He's as much a Brody as any of us.
This is Kafka-esque.
Later on, Heather thinks she killed Varch with one of her shoes, when it turns out she just hid the exoskeleton Varch shed off. From there, it kinda takes a mean turn as the aliens decide to prank on her by acting that Varch ran away, creating Heather to build up guilt. Even her own brother Adam joins in. Something about that feels too cruel here. And what lesson is there to teach? Be respectful to each other's creatures even if they are trying to eat your boyfriend? And be courteous to others even if they don't like the creatures you have as a pet? Bit of a backwards moral there. In the B plot, Sally puts Bobot on a diet which leads to various gags where he tries to sneak some chocolate pudding. Not much else to say outside of that.
My current state of bliss has rendered me temporarily inarticulate. Whee!
Episode 5 of the series, Too Good to Be True, is where things thankfully start to pick up. I feel like had this aired as the first or second episode, critics wouldn't have been so harsh. It holds the better jokes, and the story does manage to give all of the family members something to do.
Well, lots of shows don't get good until the 5th episode, so you spend your life watching, waiting to see why your friends love it so much. Sometimes it never happens.
Bobot sees an ad for a doll named Stinky Stevie, and of course he wants it. When his parents deny him the doll, he decides to clone himself with Sneezy's duplicating machine in order to go out and get one.
No. They'll become suspicious.
Bobot goes to the toy factory, but ends up being packaged and sent to 2 spoiled kids. Meanwhile, the Bobot clone is much nicer than the original and starts to worry the folks. This is probably the second best of the series so far. It holds the better jokes and the writing is paced better. Yeah, there's some stuff that's hit and miss, like when Snizzy's pet rat discovers the missing Watergate tapes.
And 18 minutes of tape. What's that about?
And when they go to parody E.T., it feels borderline forced.
He says, hold your family!
What kind of lame extraterrestrial are you anyway?
Yeah, Get a Life did that joke better with Spewy and Me.
Come on, let's fly across the big, fat moon. Here we go.
Regardless, it does flesh out the family members more, and when Bobot goes missing, it gives something for everyone to do. I even like the B-plot where the Bobot clone starts to drive the parents crazy because of his kind nature.
No more pudding for me. I require vitamin A. Brussels sprouts, please.
Cookie called the doctor.
It's a solid episode at best, but not the big standout. That credit goes to the next one, Respect Your Elders. It's the funniest and downright best of the series. 2 High Elders come down to visit Bobot to check up on how his grow to become Emperor is doing. The idea of Bobot being Emperor was established in prior episodes, but in small mentionings. Thankfully, they managed to pay off all that here. Things take for a turn when the Elders are discussed to discover how Bobot has been treated. The High Elder named Prissy, and yes, that is his name.
I bet you got a lot of kidding on the playground.
On my planet, Prissy means he who devours entrails without sauce.
Anyway, Prissy challenges Doug to a series of tests to see how worthy he is. The storyline is just solid, and I credit that more to veteran actor Robert Westenberg as the High Elder Prissy. Robert is just straight up committed to this role. His over-the-top delivery really adds to the stern personality.
And now, in tribute to the future Emperor, we shall sing the Song of Enthronement. Do, do, ma. Tropnike pakulmate, tropnike pakulmate, tropnike pakulmate.
Funny enough, Robert's performance here is almost similar to how much energy he gave in a performance of Into the Woods, where he played a dual role as one of the princes that were going after Cinderella and the big bad boner wolf. And if you want to get an idea of what it was like, thankfully PBS did a recording of that, and you can buy it at any other video media outlet you can where you are. Trust me, it's worth seeing for his performance alone. And Howard the Duck is the baker, Bernadette Peters is the witch. Why am I not talking about that?
He gives the same sentiment and energy here, and you can't take his eyes off him. He is that good. I should also point out Peter Linz puppeteers the Elder of the Nerdtron Galactic Federation. He also has some good moments, too.
Well, I got there, and there were, like, all these cute clothes, and I was like, oh my god!
What is this like business? You cannot be like, oh my god.
Could you just, like, take a chill pill?
Peter would later take over the role of Henry Monster and Ernie from Sesame Street, though Muppet enthusiasts know him better as Walter. Odd. You go from a short-lived series, that being Aliens in the Family, to a Muppet movie that becomes a big splash at the box office. The B-plot is decent at best, but not too bad. Heather notices Tiffany and her friends like to see Spit do gross things. She uses this to her advantage to keep her friends close by, because I'm certain any teenage girl would love to see an alien take his own lungs out of his body. And from there, things go downhill with the last 2 episodes. I feel like once we finally get to see the top, we roll ourselves back to adequacy. Dissected and Neglected actually does hold an interesting idea. Doug tries to make a merge deal with another company and invites the CEO over for dinner. The CEO brings his wife over, which it's revealed Cookie once abducted her and dissected her brain. Seeing Cookie knows a lot about her, Doug views this as an opportunity to know her better in order to sell her husband on the merge deal. In all seriousness, this is not a bad idea. An alien who once kidnapped someone and did things now has to deal with the guilt.
Again, clearly this is a sitcom, so they have to play it up for laughs. On the other hand, I'm surprised they're able to get away with jokes like that don't involve anal probe.
Stop. We have reached the limits of what rectal probing can teach us.
Meanwhile, Snizzy accidentally creates mutant versions of her favorite candy, Yuckles.
Get it? It's like Chuckles, but network friendly.
This time she has to help Adam face off a bully, and it goes about as well as you expect.
This is for everyone who chucks me on the floor and never thinks about my feelings!
I feel like this was intended to be an A-plot, but found its script shuffled with the Cookie storyline. On top of that, we get 2 other B-plots crammed right in. One has Heather slowly turning into an alien after learning Spit used her hairbrush. Neat idea, but I feel the movie My Favorite Martian did it better with the alien gum. Bad as that movie was, the concept of human turning into an alien via Deus Ex Machina device worked better there. In another B-plot, we see Sally try to teach Bobot the alphabet with extreme measures, which actually leads to some funny moments.
Sally, you force me to make an example of this irritating consonant from here on. I banish the letter S from my speech.
You won't get far without the S, Bobot. You wait. You wait and see.
Along, Ucker!
I feel like this episode suffers from too much storyline. It's like if 2 basic scripts were just crunched together and just mixed around, with little focus on which story to go by. While it's not the worst episode of the batch, it's still an unfocused, mediocre episode.
And thus we get the final episode, a very Brody Tweeznacks. Not a strong episode to go out on. At first, I thought it was the obligatory holiday episode. Imagine that, a whole episode based on the Brodies trying to understand different holiday customs from each other. But no, it's not that. Spit tries to cover up eating his homework by saying he was preparing for an alien holiday called Tweeznacks. He describes it as a holiday where a Santa-like figure in the form of something crossed with Krampus and Godzilla eats meat from a decoration and leaves behind gifts. The plan almost works, that is if the principal didn't ask for a pageant talking about Tweeznacks. And things get worse when Bobot hears about the fake holiday and thinks it's real. First off, I'm willing to believe these episodes aired out of order, because the Tiffany character still carries some affection for Spit even after telling him she lost interest in the Elder episode. That is, if this show goes by sitcom logic where there is little to no continuity, I can kinda sorta live with that. But that is not the issue at hand. Second, the idea of Spit inventing the holiday doesn't work for me. It's hard to explain why. Maybe after seeing so many episodes where the alien characters are the focus, I kinda wanted to see one of the other humans as the center. I can't think of an episode where Adam or Heather got an entire A-plot to themselves. And considering how he keeps trying to get out of certain things like gym class and bullies, I feel like it would have made more sense if he was making up the holiday. Third, I officially am under the great belief that there is nothing more cringier to hear than Tweeznack's carols. Well, on the other hand, there's Vogon poetry, but let's not be too hasty to judge on what is worse. The B-plot is somewhat weak, but it has its moments. Sally learns that the Brodies are going away on vacation, and she dreams of joining them to meet some hunky romantic fling. In order for that dream to become a reality, she needs to get Bobot a passport picture, which gets more complicated when the photographer turns out to be a clown.
Terrified of clown? Terrified of clown!
His reactions are very much what makes this entertaining. Aside from that, this episode and the show just ends on a rather mediocre note. No big finish, just the family singing nonsense.
Turn off the microphone music!
Oddly, I kept thinking about how aliens and the family could work in today's world. With biracial marriages being a current concept, this could be a very unique property to reboot and tool around. Maybe it could be serious. Maybe they could have a way to work with the concept better in today's topical environment, instead of being so fluffy and comedically light. But no, the show never got a second season. It never got that second chance to spread its wings, iron out all the kinks, and move forward and try to do better. It only exists as a thought.
It's more ironic now, considering two Jim Henson Company produced shows have debuted exclusively to Disney+, Muppets Now and Earth to Ned, both with more fleshed out concepts than what was attempted in the mid-1990s, one being a series of Muppet viral vignettes, and the other a wacky talk show on a spaceship where an alien is the host.
Both Henson shows feel well developed and fit the tone they're trying to go for, which says a lot for two other shows back in 1996 that were looking for two big things: an identity and an audience. And while Muppets Tonight lasted a little bit longer on the air, the bigger tragedy is that Aliens and the Family never got the chance to find its proper footing on the airwaves.
Aliens in the Family is not terrible at all, and I'm glad I finally got around to see the show in full. It's not a bad idea, but I feel the fault lies on the scripts and the way the material is being handled. Had they gone on a more risky route, it could have been something. And I know there is some bits of good writing here, but not present to full potential. Even the show makes references to other science fiction properties, which shows there's some level of intelligence at best.
Lord Bobot shall return to our planet and be raised by a battle-scarred Neutronian marauder.
What's that?
An awesome fighting machine whose endurance, agility, and mutilation skills surpass all others, whose mere presence strikes fear into the hearts of all foes.
Oh, I get it. It's that training machine from Dune. Clever. Very, very clever. Alas, it just remains as a curiosity of the 1990s, with cool alien puppets, but less than stellar sitcom writing.
Normally I give my recommendation as to whether you should watch this or not watch, but this is kind of a tough case considering this show has yet to receive a DVD release. At least as of this video. And it's kind of a shame when you let unknown programs like this not be discovered by your audience, and instead be left out to live in the old dusty pasture of unknown sitcom programs that once were. My 2 cents are, if this was aired on a different station like, say, the Sci-Fi Channel, maybe it would have gotten a little better to find its roots, or at least its perfect tone, setting, and the characters attributed for it. Still, I'll give Aliens in the Family this much. It's better than Mego.
Awesome. I'm Migo from the planet Marmadan 4.0.
Okie dokie, Migo.
Okie dokie, Alex.
Balky from Perfect Strangers is a Mary Poppins alien nanny! And taking care of Jonathan Lipnicki? Don't be so ridiculous. And to anyone who actually does remember Migo, please accept my condolences!
Vaulting will be right back after this special message. Well, three's a charm. I am doing a Patreon poll for Christmas. I'm letting you know well in advance because I want to make sure I get ready for whatever flick you plan to choose for my special Patreon Christmas poll episode. And I want to know exactly which one of those four you want me to choose. There's Terry Gilliam's Fascinating Brazil, the Dana Carvey cult classic Trapped in Paradise, What in the World Does This Have to Do with Christmas, Roland Emmerich Stargate, and too many ice puns, Batman and Robin. It is up to you. I leave this in your hands. You have the will to choose between one of these four. Find out how at my Patreon page at patreon.com/vaulting. If you're not a member, you can do so today by donating simply $1. You'll get access to future updates on episodes, early access to future episodes, and also see what other bonuses you can get from there too. Come and join today. It just takes one simple click.
You know, it was a good episode, wasn't it? Yes, it was a good episode. Alright, I'd like to thank my Patreon members, friends and family, those who are watching this. Dinosaurs are being a huge influence, especially Jim Henson as well, because without him, this show wouldn't be here. And to everyone else who's watching this, good night, everybody, good night! Cut.
Oh, I remember the first time I brought a boy home. He and my dad did not hit it off at all.
Hey, Cookie, am I ever going to meet your father?